Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about assumptions because assumptions are an important thing and it's a thing that people often get criticised over. You've assumed this, you've assumed that. Sometimes if you're talking to someone that you know and that you have a good grasp of the ins and outs of that person, then making an assumption fair enough. You can understand, you can make that assumption with some degree of certainty and so on and so forth, awareness of that individual and what they do. And so, sometimes you'll be wrong, sometimes you'll be right. But it's a thing that you can do safely. Sometimes making assumptions is a bad thing. For example, if you're on a jury and you're trying to assume things about the person that's sat in front of you that's been accused of a crime, then, making those assumptions just based on instantly what you see in front of you and you form your opinions around that first impression or those first set of assumptions that you've made, then yeah, potentially that's going to be bad, especially if you stick to those assumptions when evidence is actually put in front of you to assess. But they are important because assumptions have to be made in regards to the strangers that we interact with. Yeah, assuming that someone who looks male wants to be called he, for instance, or sir, is very much an assumption that you're making to be polite, to allow someone a part of a discourse and make it a polite one and make it a civil one. Assumptions in regards to assuming actions can sometimes lead you to make decisions differently and possibly make them better than you would have in other situations where you wouldn't have taken it into account, purely because you've not put the extra amount of consideration in for the things that you've assumed will be the responses from other people. And so why does assumption get such a large number of people making complaints and crying about it these days? Well, that's simple, because every single one of these individuals that is complaining about assumptions being made, when they're small assumptions, like whether or not you should be calling someone a he or she or whatever else, those assumptions that you make, you're doing them to try and be polite, but they get a lot of backlash because those people want their their individual identity, their specialness to be recognised. Where does that stem from? It stems from so many different places. It stems from very child-focused education, which doesn't allow for a much bigger picture kind of thing. It stems from the kind of often ridiculed kind of participation medal kind of attitude towards certain things, where it's like, well, no, there is one person who's come out better than everyone else because you were competing in, say, a sport. There's no point in giving everyone a participation medal. Failure is a learning experience. Failure is a thing that you need to go through. Coddling those people only generates this very I'm important, I'm special, and I need to be recognised for it kind of mentality. But as said, assumptions are a tool. They're not anything else. You're assuming to allow for extra consideration of people. You're never making assumptions purely to like damage, because it's like if you're making an assumption in a discourse, it's so that you can try and understand the other person, even if the assumption that you've made is somewhat projecting at them. It's so you can understand the other person, and then it's a case of either you want to impress on them why what they're doing is wrong, or how they're doing it is incorrect, or how they're doing it is correct, or whatever else, and you're making those assumptions and so on and so forth as part of a discourse to try and make a point to that person for their benefit to one degree or another. You're not, assumptions are a tool to allow for consideration of people, especially that you don't know, and that whom you may very well only meet once for 10 minutes and then never meet again. So I don't see why there's so much anger around it, because there's really no point. It's not hate crime to assume that someone passing is the wrong thing, or is a sir if they have a beard and they look like a male. There's no harm in it. It's a word. It doesn't do anything. So making those assumptions are very much an important part of just civil discourse. And I know this is probably going to be a short video now because that's all I've got to say on this. But what it comes down to is, what do you guys think? Should you be allowed to just assume because it is just a tool for these purposes, or do you feel that assumptions are wrong and they are bad and they need to be quelled to one degree or another, purely to allow those people who feel they are different to be recognised, even though they are a very small part of the population? Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, please drop me a like if you found this at all interesting or agree with what I'm saying. And otherwise, please subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.